Hi all, in this vlog we will be looking at skill and capacity characteristics pertaining to speed and agility or change in direction drills. In the case of speed, two subjects performed a 30-meter sprint. For the purpose of this vlog, I shall focus on the acceleration phase. Another two subjects performed a 180-degree change of direction on both their left and right sides. Skills and capacity limitations will be assessed in light of the following. A lack of capacity will be considered as highly likely if either drill cannot be improved to an optimal level through coaching cues, with mobility, power and/or strength limitations being identified. On the other hand, when a subject is unfamiliar with the task at hand or has developed a habit of executing drills using suboptimal movement strategies, in the absence of mobility, power and/or strength limitations, a lack of skill will be considered as highly likely. Subject 1 performing a 30-meter sprint is a 27-year-old rugby union player. At the start, the subject is achieving a decent lean of 48 degrees and is able to maintain this level of lean for the first few steps. The subject also shows a good level of foot-ankle complex priming, even though stiffness needs to be improved, as the foot-ankle complex collapses on most touchdowns, prolonging ground contact time. Upon touchdown, the stance toe is not too far off the center of mass. Ideally, however, the touchdown during acceleration should occur behind the body's center of mass for a more efficient horizontal propulsion and forward lean. As the subject drives down the lead leg into the ground marked with the red circle, a negative shin angle should be maintained. However, this negative shin angle is not maintained by the subject, as the knee angle opens as the stance toe touches down in front of the body's center of mass. This results in reduced power and increased flight time. It is also noticeable that the trailing leg is coming through late, as the subject moves too soon into a cyclical action instead of stabbing the ground in piston-like fashion. The red circle is highlighting some rocking affecting the upper back, neck and head. This energy seepage could be avoided if the subject is coached on how to stabilize this region. There is also no exaggerated arm movement to counter the greater momentum generated by the legs during acceleration. As presented earlier, the subject suffered a back injury while still shooting the vlog, and thus could not perform any power or strength related tests. However, prior to the injury, the subject was back squatting 181 kilograms, indicating a good level of strength. The active single leg raise test indicated an adequate level of hip mobility. In the case of the knee to wall test, there is a level of asymmetry noticeable between the left and right ankle due to a previous injury in the left ankle. In general, the subject is still able to achieve a good level of dorsiflexion in the less mobile left ankle. Once the subject gets back to normal training, accelerated bounding will be recommended. This entails the athlete taking a 3-point stance at the start and going directly into a bounding motion to place emphasis on the piston-like motion of the legs. As the subject was still recovering from the back injury, he was only able to perform wall drills in slow motion. Wall drills will be used to place emphasis on shin angle and forward lean. Subject 2 performing a 30-meter sprint is a 29-year-old recreational football player. As with the first subject, the focus is on the acceleration phase. We can see good use of arms and good level of triple extension. The forward lean is above 45 degrees, however one needs to consider that the subject is not pushing against blocks. We can also see that the stance toe is not touching down behind the center of mass, and thus the subject is not placing himself in the best position to obtain a more favorable horizontal propulsion and forward lean. The still shot on the right of the screen is the second step from the start, whereas the still shot on the left side of the screen is the third step. On comparing both shots, it seems as though subject 2 is able to lift the left knee higher than the right knee, possibly indicating lower hip mobility on the right side. And this can be considered in relation to the angle of forward lean. Like subject 1, subject 2 is also extending out from the knee, seen particularly on the left still shot. The subject should aim at driving the leg downwards and backwards whilst maintaining a good knee angle. The active single leg raise test further indicated a restricted range of hip mobility, particularly on the right side. The knee to wall test indicates an equally adequate level of dorsiflexion in both ankles. The standing long jump was performed using double and single leg jumps. There was no significant difference between the left and right leg to be a cause of concern of lower limb asymmetry. However, the figures indicate the subject would benefit from an increased focus on strength and power training. This should aim at increasing ground force production, greater acceleration, and forward lean. Thus, this lack of capacity is thought to be coming from hip mobility restriction and limited explosive force production. Alongside hip mobility exercises such as the 90-degree angle single leg stretch, the subject was also recommended to perform high knee walking drills before progressing to A-skip drills. Wall drills were also used to cue the subject on key postural aspects of acceleration. Squats, deadlifts, clean and split jerks were also recommended weight room exercises to target strength and power in combination with plyometric exercises such as bounding. Subject 1, performing a 180-degree change of direction, is a 28-year-old ladies national football league player. Firstly, one can see the subject performing a 180-degree change of direction using the right leg as the outside leg. On reviewing this in more detail, the subject seems to be overextending the right leg as she's about to place it in position to push in the opposite direction, and in doing so the left ankle overpronates and then can easily result in an ankle injury, and this could also potentially impact knee stability. The same issues were not seen when the subject performed the 180-degree change of direction, this time using the left leg as the outside leg. On comparing both sides, it is positive to note that the subject is able to keep a low center of mass on either side. As already discussed, the ankle pronation can be seen on the left inner leg, but not on the right inner leg. It was also noticeable that the subject uses her arms more when changing direction of the right leg as opposed to the left leg. A positive point to note is that subject 1 is able to keep the center of gravity on the inner leg, particularly when changing direction on the outside left leg. Ankle and hip mobility tests were performed alongside ballistic performance tests in the form of the standing long jump. The knee to wall test indicated subject 1 has an equally good level of ankle dorsiflexion in both ankles. Similarly, the active single leg raise test indicated a good level of hip mobility on both sides. Standing long jump was performed using double and single leg jumps. There was no significant difference noticed left and right leg. In light of the issues noticed and the tests performed, the subject is thought to be executing the drill using suboptimal movement strategies, and hence this is thought to be a skill issue. Wall drills were performed to focus on key postural points, with particular emphasis on not overstretching leg prior to pushing off. In addition, side-to-side bounding was used to focus on transfer of forces from one leg to another to mitigate risk of injury due to incorrect execution of movement at the point of change in direction. Resistance bands can be applied to increase challenge of both exercises as the subject progresses. Subject 2, performing a 180-degree change of direction, is a 38-year-old former amateur football player. Firstly, one can see the subject performing a 180-degree change of direction on the left side. The same 180-degree change of direction was also performed on the right side. One can notice the subject needs to use his arms more to balance whilst performing the turn on the right side, as opposed to the more coordinated and controlled step taken when turning on the left side of the athlete. The subject seems to be able to attain increased flexion of the right ankle and also increased flexion at the hips in a bid to achieve a lower center of mass prior to the last change in direction step. The subject is able to achieve a good low center of mass on both sides, especially when turning on the right side. This results in the outside leg having to counter greater forces on it, causing decreased reactivity and a longer ground contact time. The active single leg raise test indicated a symmetrical good level of hip flexion. The knee to wall test indicated a satisfactory level of dorsiflexion, although the subject was able to achieve less flexion with the left ankle than with the right ankle. The standing long jump was performed testing both double and single leg jumps. The single leg jumps indicated that the subject is able to generate more power using the left leg as opposed to the right leg. The limitations noticed are thought to be linked to these lower limb asymmetries, and hence the subject is to be suffering from capacity issues. Unilateral exercises in terms of ankle mobility and strength exercises, such as the single leg squat, alongside side-to-side bounding, were recommended to counter the identified capacity issues. When reviewing speed characteristics in particular, the technical model for pure sprinting and a sprinter does not automatically transfer to sprint training practices in team sports, such as rugby and football, where speed is only one component of many. In football and rugby, for instance, speed is used more often than not in combination with a change in direction as opposed to sprinting on track.